See if my mic's working a little better there. There we go. How about that? Hi, and welcome to Moodle Installation Administration for Dummies. The objective today, if you're here either online or in person, you can take the survey so I kind of have an idea of what the audience wants to look at this presentation. Let's see if I can get my remote going where I want it. Okay, there we go. So today's Moodle Installation Administration for Dummies. The idea today is to go through the steps of installing Moodle, configuring Moodle, and setting it up to make it the easiest to run for your school district. All the presentation materials are at this QR code or the link that's listed at the bottom there. And all the materials I'm going to be going through are going to be there as well. So a little bit about myself. I've been a tech director at National Trail Local Schools now for 16 years, and I've been administering Moodle for most of that. Little background in the Air Force prior to coming on here to National Trail. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the blended learning and one-to-one, and basically why we're looking at setting up an LMS. We started back in 2012 with our blended learning journey, and it's really, I guess, one of my personal beliefs that there's no way to have a good one-to-one system without a true LMS available to you, and that's what Moodle gives you. So today we're going to talk about why we need an LMS. Without an LMS, we don't want to just give people devices for no reason. We want to give devices with a purpose. And an LMS lets us do true blended learning, flipped classrooms, advanced activities, differentiation, being able to connect to all of our students where they're at in a multitude of different ways, not just one. So that's what an LMS does for us. Moodle is one of the top LMSs. There's 4 LMSs up here that are ranked top by PC Magazine. And if you look at those, they're Absorb, Schoology, Canvas, and Moodle is the only one up there that is no cost. It was developed by a Blackboard engineer that left Blackboard and started Moodle as a separate open source project years ago. I'm not even sure when Martin started that project. So you can see it's all over the world, over 9,000 sites in the United States, over 2,800 college sites. There's only 5,300 colleges and universities, so over half the universities in the United States use Moodle, and that's registered sites, by the way. There could be many other sites that people have installed but not registered. So you can see that Moodle is extremely widespread and used all over the place. So today's objectives are to go through the server setup, the Moodle installation steps, and then finally, and the most important part, is the Moodle configuration itself, which is where many schools fail. An improperly configured Moodle can lead to staff dissatisfaction, confusion. So the more we can do to try to make it easier for our staff, the better. I will tell you that these are lessons learned, because we didn't do all these from the beginning. We've been doing Moodle since at least 2006, and we did it not great the way it came around, and hopefully that we can help other schools avoid some of the pitfalls that we did. So the server setup, it can be either local or cloud-based. I recommend local. You'll see what the cost of cloud-basing. This can be here in a second. You don't have as good a performance if it's cloud-based, not as much control, and not the ability to differentiate and change your or modify your server setup. So we're going to look at that. I use long-term support Ubuntu 16.04. It's good until April 2021. I would use that one. It's proven and works great for us. Moodle installation, they have a long-term service branch schedule now. They didn't used to. 3.5 is the current long-term service branch, and it's out till May 2021. So if you jumped on Moodle today with these two, you're good until the end of the school year in 2021. And then at that point, you'd maybe want to look at a new version of Ubuntu and a new version of Moodle. So we're going to be looking at those. This is the price of hosting with Moodle Cloud. You can see it's $1,000 a year for up to 500 users, which kind of defeats the point of, not that that's overly expensive, that's only $2 a kid per year, but it kind of defeats the purpose. And if you look down here at the bottom, one of the things you don't get is the ability to add plugins and themes, which are one of the best things about Moodle. The ability to modify it and expand it to do many more things than what comes with it right out of the box. So our Ubuntu installation is on a virtual machine made with VMware, and I will tell you that ours is a horse. We started out with a 386 when I first did it, and it worked fine for 5 or 6 classrooms, and then we expanded from there, moving up until we're at where we're at today. This VMware ESXi, which is, by the way, free to download and install, and the key is free, was built on a relatively high-end server for about $2,700. And it's and this was done last year, I think, with the Intel i7-6950X. It's a 10-core, 20-thread machine with 128 gig of RAM, and it's got a 1 terabyte M2 SSD drive that Moodle runs on, which just makes it incredibly fast. Now, I will tell you, you don't need this speed when you start off. It isn't until you get lots of classes using lots of advanced stuff like quizzes that calculate things and do things on the fly in the background that you need to have this much to do. And I've got a i7 4-core non-hyper-threaded machine with 16 gig of RAM here with a 120 gig solid-state drive in front of us that would do just good enough. You can pull out any teacher's machine, make sure it's got a solid state of sufficient size, and use it to start yourself off on Moodle. This runs more than Moodle. 120 gig would be terrific overkill if it had that much, and a VMware machine can only get 8 cores anyway, with the free version, that is. So it runs all of our websites on this one server, and if you want to know whether that ends up being good, there's a benchmark on Moodle. 0 being impossible to get means that it responds in 0 seconds. It runs through all of our tests on the benchmark in 0.65 seconds, and you can see the difference between the acceptable and critical limits and what ours gets. Ours is a horse, and it does a good job. And with an SSD and 16 gig RAM and a quad-core hyper-threaded machine, you'd see much of the same performance. It's just I do virtual machines and like many things running on one machine, not just one. But I just wanted to see that you can do it at relatively low cost. And that's what I was saying. 8 to 16 gig of RAM, I'd go put in 16. An i5 or an i7, 500 gig SSD, a 1 terabyte cheap today, I'd probably do that. And you can always migrate to a better machine if you wanted to down the line once you have more buy-in. And I will tell you that we started with several teachers, like 5, using it, and I would recommend doing the same thing until you've got the configuration for your school down, and then rolling it out to the rest of the school, and let those 5 first-round teachers also be your local experts to help you out. It's kind of a good way to roll that out. Now, all the stuff I'm going to go through is in that Google Drive that this UGL points to. It's got all the resources that I'm going to show you today, and all the things that we're using are directly in there. You can see the 3 steps. There's a folder for each one with notes and documents and a video inside each one of those. There's a folder that says NT settings, which has all our server settings. I'm not going to say those are the perfect settings. I'm going to say those are our settings. If you use the same ones, that's great. If you modify them, that's great too. I just wanted to give people who are just getting started an idea of where they were coming from. So, and then there's some additional CSS code in the additional folder that you can reference as well. So the first step is installing Ubuntu. And in there's it says Ubuntu 16.04 installation. It's a Google Doc. It has all the notes that I'm going to go through during the installation steps itself, so that you can do it on your own, at your own time, anytime, and follow through those, and you'll end up with a perfect Ubuntu server that does exactly what you want it to do as far as Moodle goes. So I'm going to go ahead and go through, and I'm just going to play the video of the installation.
So I'm going to do this from the start using this document, which I have shared in the folder as well, on how to do the install. The first few steps are going to be...
Sorry about that.
VM install. So if you're not doing it virtually, you're not going to have to do these steps, but if you are, I wanted to have them on here as well. So I'm going to create a new VM. Next, I'm going to call it Moodle Demo. And this will be a Linux install, and down here at the bottom, Ubuntu 64. Next, I'm going to put it on my 2 terabyte SSD on this virtual server. And then I'm going to do a couple configuration things. I never do one CPU. I could do, obviously, a bunch. I'm going to say 4. And I'm going to make it 100 gig on the hard drive. Obviously, ours is much larger than that for our production one. Down here under CD-ROM, I'm going to change this to ISO, and I'm going to choose what ISO. I'm doing 1604 desktop version. I know 1804 long-term releases out, but 1604 is still 2023. I'm pretty safe with that, and I'm sticking with that one because I know it works. The next thing up here, I'm going to go to VM options and say boot options and force it to go into BIOS and say next. It's going to say, hey, we're good to go. I'm going to say next, and it's making it down here. I'm going to Moodle demo and then turn it on. I should come right up into BIOS. It always does that whenever they're... So it's a really basic BIOS in VMware. I'm just going to move this down and move the CD-ROM before the hard drive and say, actually, I don't even know that I need to do that because there's not going to be anything on the hard drive. So I probably didn't even need to do the BIOS stuff now I think about that. So I'm going into Ubuntu 16.04 right now. Yes, I want English. I want to go and install it. And you'll see the installation is fairly quick and painless. And we're going to continue in English and download updates in third party while we're doing it. Continue. And I'm going to erase the entire disk, install, and confirm it. And yes, we're in New York. And I'm just going to hit enter. You can see it's just off my screen, so I'm just hitting enter to go next. My name is Brian, and this is a little demo we're installing. So this password is going to be our initial administrative password. I'm going to just type in admin, and it says that's a terrible password. Fine. I'm going to stick with the terrible password for now. And it's going to go ahead and do its installation. It is really quick. And it'll come right up and tell us when the installation is done. Now, as it's doing that, I'm going to show you this document again. We're going to be following through this document to set up Ubuntu. This area, when we're setting up the database, anytime you see bold and italics, it's a spot where you to change that into your own user and password. Obviously, I don't use Moodle. User and Moodle password is my users, but just so you know, that's going to be available to you in that folder where I've got the rest of these documents. And we're almost done. And I forgot to say, when it's done, you hit restart now. It's going to do a reboot, tell us to remove the CD. Okay, once we come back up, we can log on as our administrative password that we just gave an administrative user. Now, many Linux users, especially in Ubuntu, never log on as what used to be called, or what is still called, the root user, because of, I'm going to say, accounting purposes. I'm removing all these things from the quick launch bar. And I'm going to add one called terminal, because I'm going to do a bunch of stuff here, and I'm going to lock that launcher. So you can always, you can see here, to run a command as administrator, type sudo man sudo root, or use the sudo command. I don't like doing that. I want to log in as root. So the first things you're going to see on this are the things I do to not log on as root. So I'm going to go to that document first. So from here on out, I'm going to be referring to this document that's also in the folder. So I did the CPU. I forgot to increase the video RAM and move my LAN to the 1000E, which I just did because I kept locking up while I was trying to make this video. I've installed the desktop version, so the first thing that I'm going to do is do these things right here. So I'm going to basically make it so I can use root. So I'm going to paste those commands in there. It's going to ask for my password. It's going to ask for the new admin password that root is going to use. And I think I may have just messed up my typing. So let's do it again. Okay, so I've got those down, and then I'm going to take the next command, which is going to allow me to log in as root. And then I'm going to take the next one, which I'm going to use to edit one of the files that makes it so I can log in as root again. So when this editor opens up, I'm going to take and I'm going to grab that entire section here. And this one with brackets, I'll put that one there. And I'm going to put that entire section in there that says I'm using Unity Grader, and I can put in a manual password, so I'm going to save that one. No, cancel, save. And what did I do wrong? I was about to say, oh, I forgot to do the one above it, which was TSU. Which says, hey, everything else I do, I'm going to do as an administrator. Then I'm going to do that command. Follow my directions a little better. There we go. And now I'm going to do exactly what I said. I'm going to copy this. Because I wasn't editing as an administrator, I couldn't save that document, which wasted everything I just did. But good example of, see, now you can see the save is not grayed out any longer. So I've done that one. Now I'm going to do this one, which, when I go in there, this last line, it says I need to delete, or get an error message every single time I log in as root, which I don't want that either. So now I'm done with all that. I can restart. I can just say reboot now. And it's going to restart us into Ubuntu, and now we can log in as root, which is my preference. So now I'm going to, now this wasn't there before, I can log in and go as root. Put in my root password, and I can now log in as the root user on my machine. So everything I do, I'm doing as administrator. The little thing I do is I get all this crap on the launcher and whatever I'm going to use. And then I'm going to add, which I use a lot, terminal. I click and lock that one to the launcher. I'm going to change my display settings, so I go up here and say resolution. Did the wrong one? There we go. Resolution, and I'm going to change my resolution to 1024 by 768, so I can actually see what I'm doing. So now I can see all that. And now I'm going to do the rest of those steps. So I'm going to be referring the document from here on out, which is restarted. So now I'm going to start here, and I'm going to be updating Ubuntu. So I'm going to apt get, and I can just copy the command right there if I wanted to. Update, which is basically going and saying, hey, go out to the servers and make sure I've got all the current stuff. And then I got to do upgrade, which is just going to upgrade. And it's going to say, hey, do you want to update everything? And I'm going to say yes. I'm going to pause while it does this. It'll take a couple minutes. Now that Ubuntu is updated, if you're doing it as a VM, you also want to install the VM tools that makes things run better. I'm going to tell you, I made a mistake here. I used a capital A, and Ubuntu is case sensitive, so. Okay, so VMware Tools is now installed, and I'm at this point. I switched to small resolution. I'm going to fix that again. Okay, the next thing it talks about is making sure your IP address is set up right, and either you can do that with your DHCP server, or you can set it as a manual reservation. That's up to you. So the way you do that is just come up here and type network. And you can see network right there, and you can hit options, and then you get the network settings, and you go to IP4. It's set on DHCP right now. I'm going to just leave it that way since it's not a real server. I'll need to know the IP address of this machine, so I can do that with the term if config, and now I know that this one's on 4.121.10.66.4.122 as I go forward to configure my server. But you really do want to make sure you've got it set up as a set name. Then it says change the name of the Ubuntu installation on the following places in etc host name and etc hosts, and that's just so it shows up correctly on your network. So if I go down here to computer and then into the etc folder, I just start typing host name. Now I got hosts, and it's host name right there. It's called Moodle Demo. I'm going to leave it as that. You can change it to something else if you wanted to. And also the host file that we looked at, you can change it there as well. Now we're getting down to the point where we're setting up our server from Moodle itself, so we have to get these dependencies in there. So I'm just going to copy that. And by the way, I right-click at the terminal to paste it. Yes, I want to install all those things in there. And it's going to pop up and ask me what the password is going to be for the MySQL root user. You can use the same one. I'm going to use, for the sake of what I've got down here in my demo, I'm going to use Moodle password. And type it again. Obviously, we'll use that password. It also just installed those things, and then the next one I'm going to do is that next set of dependencies, which goes all the way down here. Here I could have made it all line if I wanted to. Once those dependencies are done, I can install the other ones, and that will give me everything that I need to install Moodle, have all the character sets and everything set up there when I get to the actual installation of Moodle, because this is really just a setup. Now, the last thing before we install Moodle is to make a database for Moodle, which is also down here in the directions. So I'm going to go there and leave that open below me so that I can see it, because I'm not going to copy and paste the first one. So I'm going to do MySQL -u root -p, and then it's going to ask me the password. I put the password, which I just put in. And now I'm in MySQL, so I'm going to go ahead and use I can still copy and paste right here. I'm going to create a database called Moodle Demo, with this character set, blah, blah, blah. You don't need to really know what all that is, you just need to do it. So I'm going to create that, and then I'm going to create a user called Moodle User, which the Moodle installation is going to use, and I'm going to grant permissions to Moodle User. And I really don't have to do both of these, but I'm going to do grant all permissions as well. Just save. And once I'm done, I'm going to quit. Now, there's a couple other things that PHP does by default, and it's down here in the bottom. Basically, change the max file upload size, because many times in a Moodle installation, your students are going to make something bigger than what the default is. So I'm going to go and edit this file. So copy that, paste it in here, and open up the editor. That is not moved from there apparently, so we'll just do it browsing through here. So I'm looking for the PHP Apache file. So I'm going to find that. I just fixed it so it goes to the right place, so you can copy and paste this on there, and then it will open it up. It's a 7.0 file now. So I'm going to look for post max size in this file. Just Control F to find that. So you can see that the maximum file upload size is 8 meg. And we've had an issue where many times students have done PowerPoints and stuff that are far larger than that. And by the way, this is the max that you can do on the site, not the max you can do in the class. So I'm going to be crazy and say 2 gig is what I set as mine. And then I have to go back to the same place and find upload max file size. You have to set both of those things in the same file. And 2048. Again, that's the most that Moodle will allow you to do. That doesn't mean that's the most that you will allow once you set up the administration. I just like open it wide up here, and then I'll throttle it down later. The last thing we've had an issue with is this max execution time. That if it's too small and the gradebook is ginormous, that it can actually make it time out. So we're making it 5 minutes as our, actually that's 10 minutes as our max execution time. It's way past what we've ever had an issue with, but it just kind of solves some future problems that you might have. And that's it. So now that I'm done with all that, I'm going to save this puppy and close that, and now I can do restart just Apache. I don't need to restart the server, so I can do service restart. It doesn't like that. I can just do it now because it's the end of the video anyway, and that's everything is set up now for doing our Moodle install itself. As far as Ubuntu goes, the rest of it's step 2 on installing Moodle.
See, am I unmuted? There we go, my phone's going crazy. Okay, so I'm unmuted, and that is the complexity of the server side of the setup for, let's see if I can get it full screen here.
So we've got our Ubuntu server set up with everything we need.
And the next step is our Moodle setup. Step 2 on the Moodle. I've got already recorded, I've got my notes in there again on how to set up Moodle. If there's any questions on the Ubuntu setup, you can either put them in the chat for those of you on with this live, or you can just ask. If no one's got a question, that'll fall over here. We'll continue on with Moodle installation. The Ubuntu side, whether you use a VM or whether you just download and burn a copy of the disk and do it on an old teacher machine, is exactly the same once you get the VM set up. So that first couple minutes, if you're doing an initial install and you're just trying to get your first version of Moodle going to start out as a test at your school, just use an old teacher machine. Do use an SSD. You're going to regret it if you don't. And then the next step is the Moodle installation itself. It's also much quicker than that was. And then we'll get to the meat of the discussion after we take a short break. So let's go ahead and go to the Moodle installation itself.
So we've got our Ubuntu server set up with everything we need. We need to set up our actual Moodle installation. So we've got a couple things we have to do. Since we've got it set up, I'm going to go to computer, I'm going to the var folder, and I'm going to the www folder, and we see the HTML, and inside there is where we're going to put Moodle itself, but outside of there is where we're going to put two new folders that's going to hold our Moodle stuff. So I'm going to make one called Moodle Data, and I'm going to make one called, which you don't have to do, Moodle Backups, which is where the backups will go when Moodle does its archival backups on whatever schedule you set up. So those two folders need to be set up ahead of time. And I'm going to go ahead and set the permissions on those folders so that we have write access for Moodle, which we need in order for Moodle to get set. Now, if you're using the Google Drive, we're in step 2 of the Moodle installation, and right now we're using this Moodle installation document to guide us as well. And look at that timing. Moodle.org is doing scheduled maintenance, but I have the download from yesterday, so I'm just going to grab that. So I went to my other server and I downloaded the latest copy of Moodle 3.5, which is the long-term service release. Moodle has gone to a new thing where they release a version and support it for 3 years, and they come up with another long-term release. And we have gone to a thing of only doing long-term service releases instead of chasing releases. So I only upgrade every 3 years now to the current version of Moodle. So I've got it here. I'm going to go ahead and right-click and extract it here. I'm just going to extract it to a folder called Moodle. And then I'm going to throw the contents of that entire Moodle folder in to this HTML folder. We'll delete the index one and drop it in there. And now, if I go to my web address, which is 127.0.0.1, or to the one I found on infig, it's going to bring me right into the Moodle installation. So the actual installation is pretty easy. Yes, I'm using English. Next, confirm my path. So I'm going to var HTML. It's going to www data, which is the ones we just made. If I want to use the actual IP address, which I would, if I was setting this up for real, I would use the 10.66.4.122. It's not letting me change, so I'll show you where to change that later. I'm going to say next. I'm going to use the default improved MySQL database next. Okay, so here's the database host. Right now it's localhost. The name is not Moodle, it's Moodle Demo. Let's put that in there. The database user was the one we put in there. So Moodle user. Password that we put in there was password. Obviously, we use much better than this. In the prefixes here, we're not going to worry about these two down here, but in the prefixes, MDL is the default. This prefix, if you do more than one installation, like we have two sandboxes as well of our normal one, that has to be different on each one, or it will totally mess things up. You'll kind of authenticate to the wrong one, and it'll kind of be goofy. So you don't want to do that. You want to just go ahead and leave that, or in my case, I change it for which one. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say next. If all those things we set up were right, and we opened up the folder with the command on there that I did, the change mod R-R777, that changed everything inside the www folder to read write access. Then, if I did all that right, it should come through and say, hey, everything's ready to go, confirm you read and understand, blah, 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 continue. It's going to say, should say OK on everything other than we're not using HTTPS on this, and that's because we did all those extensions in the beginning to make sure all those other ones would be OK, so it meets our requirements. We're going to say continue, and it's now setting up all the database folders for Moodle, and it's still going. These are all the database tables that are just set up. I'll scroll down the bottom and I say continue. And now it's going to ask me some stuff from my initial setup. This is me. So who do I want to set up as admin? I'm going to leave it admin user. I'm going to have to put in some kind of an email. You can see these ones with the asterisk fields. I have to set up a password, and it has password requirements there that I have to meet. We're going to be able to turn this off later for our users so that whatever you've got, mine is connected to my Active Directory, so whatever the Active Directory password is will just be passed into Moodle, so I'm not really putting my password requirements here. They're set up on my Active Directory. So let's see. I'm going to type in here to see Moodle admin, which is a terrible word for this. And let's see, email address. And I can set up some basic user stuff. I want to hide my address from everybody. Yep. Put city, town. I can put United States in here if I want to. Time zone still New York. Okay, so I've got my profile set up for the admin user, except for I missed something. Oh, I didn't meet the password requirement. Little admin.
Oh, I didn't want to say pound. Let's see if that meets my password requirements now.
I still didn't. What did I miss? Hopefully I don't forget that. Person recording. Okay, so now I've got my stuff for my front page site. This is the name for my school, so I'm going to put as a short name or full name. I might put National Trail Moodle.
And I can just put
Moodle here or TLS, whatever I want to put there. I don't have to put a big summary in there. And I do have self-registration disabled, so I'm going to save. And now I'm at my new Moodle site. Now we come to the configuration part of Moodle. Moodle is now, installed. Now's when I start going through and setting up what I want it to look like, how I want it to behave, and that's step 3 of the Moodle configuration.
There we go. Okay, so, mic's off. Mic's on. There we go. Okay, so we're at the configuration stage right now, which is the majority of what today's about. You saw we've gone through the entire in less than 40 minutes. Setting up an Ubuntu server, setting up a Moodle server. It's installed, it's on, and it's ready to go. So we're going to do the rest of the configuration just like you would through the web using a test server that I have set up, and we're going to go through some of these settings today. Not necessarily all of them. That would be kind of an impossibility and really of no value, because if I set it up one way, you may not want it set up that exact same way. So we're going to talk about some of the different things that we can do, and I'm going to make sure that I'm still casting, and I am. Good. Okay. So we're going to go through some of those Moodle configuration things. The first thing I really feel like we need to go through is the appearance itself, and we're going to go through the fact that Moodle is totally up to you on how you want to configure it and what you want to make it look like. I made the mistake early on of letting teachers choose their own themes, and the mistake is that then every single time you change a theme, buttons move around, it looks different, and I think that to make it easiest for a new school, really the best plan is to have that initial teacher team try the themes, come up with do a vote, whatever, however you want to decide on how you're going to configure, or decide on what your theme is, and then make that the theme for the site, at least for the first year, while the students and the staff are all getting used to how Moodle works. If they go to another page and it looks completely different, and the buttons are all in a different space, and it's not like they're in the same place, yes, it's great to have teacher creativity, but there's a point where it causes too much confusion early on in the process. So I would recommend going through, deciding your theme, setting your colors, making it look the way you want, and locking it down, which is easy. Just don't let them choose, because it's normally locked down anyway. And then you can later on give certain teachers or departments the ability to choose. You can do category themes where everybody in the science department looks like this. So all the science classes look the same and all the English classes look the same, which is better in my opinion than letting every class have their own. And I'm telling you, we do it, and I don't like it. But it's hard to go backwards. So I would recommend starting lockdown and then opening it up. So right now there's 23 themes available on long-term service branch. This is one of the reasons I only stick with the long-term service branches, because most developers develop things for the long-term service branch. So I'm going to go through how the theme is set up. So this is what the site looks like in the beginning. It's pretty lame. It just says the name of our site there, and we can go and then both choose themes and configure those themes through color settings in the theme or injecting a CSS file itself. So what that means is this is the same theme as this one with our Moodle CSS injected into it, because our colors are orange and brown, so it changes all those colors there. I'm going to show you how to both install a theme, and it's really easy, so we're going to go ahead and go to that site. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to install not only themes, plugins, anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as the administrator on this site that I've made for, and this is right now the default theme, default colors, it's Boost, it's all you get. And I'm logged in there, and I'm also going to go to Moodle.org, which is where we're going to find all the plugins, themes, everything that we can add to Moodle are right there. And I'm going to go ahead and log into Moodle.org as well. And then I'm going to go and show you where those are at. So if I go to downloads, and I go down to the bottom of downloads, it defaults with Moodle itself. I'm going to go down here where it says extend Moodle plugins directory down here. Now there's tons of plugins. And I would say the first thing you want to do is make sure you're not looking at ones that won't work. It'll only frustrate you. So if you hit the plus button here, you can say, it says Moodle version any, I'm going to say 3.5. That's the version we're on. So now as I search through anything, I'm only going to see ones for Moodle 3.5 and for nothing else. Now we're talking about adding a theme, so here I can say for plugin type, I could go down to the themes, and now if I do that, now I'm only looking at themes that are for version 3.5, and you can see there's a bunch of themes available for 3.5. I'm going to go and add one. In fact, let's see, I'll add shoelace. It looks really funny, but we're going to go ahead and add it. So I'm going to click shoelace, and if you're logged in, then when you click on it on a theme or any other plugin, it's going to give you the ability to install that plugin. So I'm going to go to versions, and you're going to see that I've got a version for 3.5 here. So I'm going to click install now. And when I do that, I've got in my Moodle profile all my versions of Moodle that I've got registered. And to register it, when you do that, it's going to come up with nothing for you, and you're going to have to set up Moodle login. You would just hit the plus button and then say what the name, the address, and what version it is. And then it will show your servers there, just like mine does. And let me go back so I can get back to that install button, and you can see I have the ability to install on my test server. Now, provided my test server is set up right, I've got my permissions right, I can just hit install now. It's going to open up my test server because I'm logged in as an administrator. Wouldn't work this for anybody else. So do you want to install shoelace? I'm going to say continue. It's going to say, hey, we've downloaded shoelace. It's successfully validated to be installed on your version of Moodle. Apologies. You hit continue. It's going to say, hey, we're going to install this now. Do you want to go ahead and upgrade your Moodle database? At any point we can cancel this, but now I'm going to hit upgrade. And now this theme is installed in this version of Moodle. So I'm going to show you how to then choose your themes, because I think appearance is one of the things that makes it work. You can see here it has a spot to put in custom CSS. That's where you can drop CSS to change colors off of the default in other ways that they aren't there. So you can look down here. How many rows or blocks do you want? How wide does it look? What setup? Maybe you want this one when they're set up, and you can see there's all kinds of different setups that I can go to. And look, there's for admin. If you're in a course, this one has more settings than almost any of the other ones. It probably was a bad choice for the demo. And I can go through and change some of the colors. I can set a background image. You can see all the color choices down here until I'm done with my choices, and I can go back there later and tweak those anytime I want to. So now it's, let's see, new front page slider. Yep, I'm going to just go down the bottom and say save changes. I'm not doing any of those things. So I've installed a new theme. Now, if I wanted to switch that theme, that's in the site administration section. So I'm going to go back to the home page. In fact, I'm going to go up here and go to site administration, and it's going to bring me to the site administration. This is what we're going to look at majority of the time today. Over here on the appearance tab, that's where we can change the appearance of Moodle. And I'm going to go down to the themes, and I'm going to go to this theme selector, and you can see what themes are on there now. There's Boost, Office 365, Clean, Essential, More, Shoelace. Now, I didn't install all these other ones, so Shoelace must have depended on one of these other ones, and it got installed too, and I didn't even notice that I was doing that at the same time. So I can go down here to the theme selector and click on change theme, and Boost is the default. That I can go down to any of these other themes and, for instance, choose Shoelace, and now my whole site's going to change the way it looks to the Shoelace theme. I'm in no way saying this is the best theme. I'm just saying that this is one of the themes that you could choose. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and go to the theme selector and put it back on the default theme for now, so that we're just staying with the default one until you've gone and configured your own site. And there we go. Now we're back to that theme. Now there's color things that we can do on here. If I go back to the site administration and appearance again, you can see, let me just go this way. You can see there are places to add all kinds of differences, and one of those is that what the default dashboard page is. For instance, if students come to our site, when they log in, this is what they always get. As soon as they're logged in, they see their class list up here. They'll see what grades they have in the class. They will see any upcoming things going on in their class, and then down below they can get a menu of other classes, but these are the ones they have grades in at the top of the site. That's what the default dashboard applies to. So if I was to go there, if I made changes to this, I could turn blocks editing on, change this default dashboard page by adding anything I want to on here, and then I set reset dashboard for all users, and everyone gets whatever dashboard that I just specified. So that's how you add a theme in here. And just so you know, it's being cast on YouTube. Just so you know, that's why I'm still going through it, in case you think I'm crazy. So anyway, so that's how to set up the appearance, and the themes and the plugins all install the same way, all at Moodle.org, just the way I just showed you at Moodle. So if you went there and you were looking for something specific, you could go through those add-ons and add it exactly the same way anytime you wanted to. The biggest thing that I want to talk about on making Moodle easier for both yourself and your users is to simplify Moodle down. And I wish, again, I had done this back when I started administering Moodle back in 2006, because the one thing that teachers have complained about the most during rollouts of new versions is that as Moodle has evolved, there have been more and more and more choices and flexibility added to the point where it confuses staff members a lot of time. Most staff members really just want it to work, and they don't want to have so many choices that they don't even understand what those choices are for. So if you can make some of those choices for your users, and I'm not saying to do it by yourself, I'm saying to do it as a team as you guys roll those out. But as you make those choices, decide what you're going to do as a district, and then lock down the things that aren't available, so that it makes it easier. And you'll see as you get into Moodle, there are lots and lots of choices available, and it really does simplify it if you can make it so that they don't have to look at so many of those options available to them. So an example of what I'm talking about, for instance, is grades. If we go into the grades, if we choose the option on something, if we make it advanced, it means it's not shown unless they ask for more. And if we say it's forced, it means they can't even make the change, that's what we want. So, for instance, our school doesn't include grades that haven't been graded. If teacher wants to give them a 0, they have to type in a 0. And that's so that as teachers put in assignments, they don't accidentally give a student an F just because they've added a new assignment in Moodle. That makes perfect sense. There's no reason to give them the option to do anything else. So we say, yes, exclude empty grades, make it advanced, and force it. No, do not include outcomes and aggregation. We use outcomes at National Trail, particularly in the elementary school, we call them indicators. I changed the name in Moodle, which you can change any word in Moodle to anything else. So ours say include indicators in aggregation. The answer is no, you don't want those part of the grade. They're particularly not for grades. And then the options of keeping the highest grade and keeping the lowest grade. We say that there's, actually I don't have it as forced. Those are advanced options that teachers can do, but they're hidden so that only an advanced teacher would even look for them, so that a more basic, newer teacher on Moodle doesn't make the mistake of accidentally put something in there that they don't know what they're doing. And the last thing on this one is allowing category grades to be overridden. In other words, you put in the individual grades and it calculates it. You don't calculate anything on your own. How they're going to calculate the grade, we have it show, for instance, the real grade, the points, and the percentage on everything, and then what grade items are available. And there's lots to go through on there, honestly, but it's best if you have your core team go through there and decide how they want it set. And then you set it and forget it, basically. If you've got a grading scale, you need to put in the grading scale. In our case, the high school and the middle school have two different grading scales. The middle school is on a 60, 70, 80, 90 grading scale, and the high school is on a plus minus scale. So we have the high school scale in there because it's harder to put in, and the middle school then can override their scales and put in their basic A, B, C, D, F grading scale in there. So that's one of the things that you can input as well. Like I said, all my settings that I've got, all the important ones, are saved as PDFs in that NT settings folder. So you can go and take a look at what we have. Again, not trying to say ours is perfect or that it necessarily applies to your school. They're just examples of what ours are, and if you ever want to call me and ask me specifically about any of those settings, you obviously may. So we're going to go through some of these other settings as well, like the course default settings. So that's one that you want to set up early. It basically says that, and I'm at the course default settings here, is how do you want it, any new course to look like? Well, by default, we want it to show. We prefer the topics format to the other formats that are out there. It is easiest for students to understand. How many sections can they add at max? 52 is ginormous. I don't know that you'd ever want that many sections being able to be displayed, but we'll leave it there. How many sections does a new course have? The default is 4. We left it there. Teachers can add more sections as they go. We have it defaulted to hidden sections are completely invisible. In other words, if a teacher hides something, there should be no reason that anybody else can see it. The layout is to show one section per page. The other option is to show it all, which makes the page load far smaller. This course layout makes it look much more like a textbook, kind of. And I'm going to go ahead and switch my view here so you can see kind of what I'm talking about. We have different roles set up, by the way, on our classes. So if you were to come into my class, it kind of shows these are all the different chapters available to students. The highlighted one is the current one, and then they click on that, and then it expands that one and hides all the other ones. It makes it load much faster by doing that. So that's what that particular setting is for. And I lost where I was at. Which tab am I on? There we go. I need to close some of these other tabs just to make it easier on myself to see where I'm going. There we go. Course end date enabled. We don't enable a course end date. That we're going to empty them all over the summer. You can force the language to be, and right now the only language in there is English, which is not
find a network connection.
the English that we're really going to use. So we'll add English US next. And I'll show you that as we go through the configuration. Gradebooks to students, yeah. Activity reports, no. Upload size, because we changed the upload to 1 gigabyte on the server, you can set anything in there as the default upload. That's pretty big. 250 megs is pretty big. They can change this, by the way. This is just the default for the site when it opens. So you could say, hey, let's make it 5. Teachers can make it bigger if they want to. Completion tracking is a big yes. We want to be able to do that because the restrictions and completion are one of the greatest things that Moodle added in the newer versions. And we want to use separate group modes that are forced, so they're forced into their course section, which is what a group is. And then we hit save on there. So that's the settings for course defaults. Default user preferences are something else that we're going to want to set, and we've got our default user preferences set to hide the address from non-privileged users so nobody can see each other's address. Okay, sorry, I just got a text message I shouldn't have looked at. Pretty HTML, only 1 email a day with forum posts. If they post in a forum, they're subscribed, and they should highlight new posts that they haven't read so that they use a forum in a class. That's done. So that's how we set those, and again, those are in that file there. So one of the things that when we talk about things that you use and things you don't use is activities. Now, there are a lot of activities in Moodle that you're not going to use. And so the best thing you could do would be to hide them initially and start out slow with only some of the activities available to teachers. For instance, the assignment one, maybe the book one, maybe the choice one, maybe the feedback, yes, the folder, absolutely not on the glossary. That's advanced Moodling as far as I'm concerned. IMS content package, no. And I'm not uninstalling it. I'm just making it so they don't see them yet. Lessons are very advanced. Pages are not. Quizzes are one of the best things about Moodle. Surveys, it's a junk thing anyways. Feedback's really the survey that they would use. And wikis, possibly not. Most people use Google Docs for wikis anymore, honestly, because they allow multiple users to do it at the same time. These are the default ones. You can hit uninstall. They'll be back the next time you go to the admin section because it'll delete it and it'll get re-added. So there's no reason to uninstall core Moodle components. Just hide them like that by clicking on the hide icon. And what that does is, just so you know, if I'm in a Moodle course, and there's only one course in here, I imported my hardware course. If I'm in here and I say I want to add an activity or resource, all the ones that I've poked in the eye and closed would not be available for a staff member to add. So you can see these are the ones that are still on there, and that's still a lot for somebody who just joined Moodle. And we're going to talk about using restriction sets to make it so that teachers have less to learn as they go, and some things that we've added as far as leveling up on that. So that's one of the reasons I would do that, and poke those in the eye and open them up as you go is one of the things you can do. And the same thing goes with blocks. There are blocks that are available to add on the side. Activities go in the middle, and on the side over here, if we go down to the bottom, you can see the add a block. And then these are the blocks that are available for teachers to add. Not all those are going to be used in your site. So same thing, I would go through and say, you know what, we're not going to use this, we're not going to, whatever blocks you're not going to have available in your class, I would definitely just go ahead and poke them in the eye so that they're not there, to make it easier for teachers to find what they really want to use in the class. And you can see there are tons on here. I would say over half of them you could poke in the eye and close out from your Moodle. Now that's where I got to what I was going to say next is roles for training and advancement. Now, in the beginning, when you put in a Moodle site and you've got a core set of teachers that are going to be your initial cadre on Moodle, you may want to have everything open and they have the ability to do everything. But as you start bringing new teachers in to your Moodle environment, having too many options is what confuses the newest teachers into the fold, I guess is the best way to say it. So the best thing we found to do is to make different levels of training so that they advance themselves up through those levels. So what I'm saying is, here's our level 1. If you're a level 1 teacher at National Trail, there's only 3 activities you can add: an assignment, a feedback, and a quiz. And there's only 4 resources that you can add: a file, which is adding a file that they can link to; a label, which is a label on the site; a page, which is a page that they type on for them to read or copy and paste; or a URL. That's it for the level 1 teacher. So when a new staff member comes to National Trail and has never come to Moodle before or used Moodle before, the last thing we want to do is give them so much stuff to learn at one time that it is overwhelming and daunting. So that's our level 1 teacher. And then when they become a level 2 teacher, which they do for themselves, when they're like, hey, I've got all those things, I'd like to see more options, then all of a sudden you see more activities and more resources show up. And then when they become a level 3, and we've only got 3 levels, then everything is available. You can see it goes way past the bottom of that screen with things they can do. The act of adding those roles is right here under defining system roles. And if we go to define a system role, it's actually not that hard. And if I was to go to our site, you would see that, if I can find our site again here, that we have an enormous number of roles that we've got. Let me I docked that, sorry. And these are all the roles that we've got on there. So some of these are the normal ones, but then we didn't call them level 1, level 2, and level 3. We called basic, intermediate, advanced Moodler. But we've got a bunch of other roles that we've defined in ours to allow specific people to do specific things. So the way you add a new role and the way you limit things in the role is to first copy, for instance, this teacher role. So I'm going to add a role, and it says, what role do you want to use as the archetype? In other words, which one am I copying? I'm going to say teacher and then hit continue. So I have to give it a name. I can just put L1, and then full name is L1 teacher. Oh, and that wasn't a 1. Okay, so who can define it? Who can assign it? A teacher can assign a level 1 teacher, and basically on all these we're going to say a teacher can do it because that's what it's starting out as. Now here's what the teacher role looks like. You can see all the things that are checked down below here is what a teacher is allowed to do. And basically, to limit the roles, you just go down through these, and I realize there's a lot of them, and say which ones would a level 1 teacher not want to be able to do. Okay, we're not going to add, they're not going to do Flickr, they're not going to do YouTube, they're not going to show social activities, and basically all those things that we go through and uncheck, then would not show up as available for the level 1 teacher. So you can go through all the blocks, you can go through all the activities, and uncheck the things that you don't want the level 1 teacher to be bothered with. And then I'm not going to do any more. And then when you're done, you say create the role. And so now you've got and you can always come back here and tweak it, and you can see what things a level 1 teacher is allowed. For instance, they're allowed to use glossaries and forums, and all I would have to do to say, oh, I didn't want glossary and forums used by a brand new teacher, is I can just do a search on forum, and then uncheck the allow. So they can't do those. They can't do user blogs. So you go through and you decide what things you want to allow or disallow. And basically you're going through and disallowing from the teacher role. And then when new teachers come in, you make them level 1 teachers, and for instance, they can go and choose then to be a level 2 or a level 3. And we find that teachers who are really interested and like to experiment, and we tell them, hey, you can make yourself any level you want to, they'll go and do that. But the teachers who are apprehensive about, I don't want to mess up anything, will just stay at their level 1 until we go, hey, you've got this down. I think you're a level 2 teacher now. We're going to go ahead and move you to level 2 in your classroom. So that's what those are for, and that has really helped make it easier for our new staff members. So to me, the keys to success of a Moodle rollout is having that core staff that goes through and makes the initial decision on what things should be set up like, how you want it to look, and making those different levels of teachers, and then having them available, because most of these things are really, really easy, especially if you've taken away all the other choices. For instance, I'm going to show you one in this particular class. If I were to go to add an assignment in this class, and I haven't done any changes to the assignment right now, you can see there's a lot of choices as I go down here on availability, submission types. All these other settings have more and more things that I can choose from on how I want to set up this particular activity. And all those choices have a tendency to be daunting when somebody hasn't done it before. If I go and do the same thing on my production Moodle site and go to add an activity here, I'm going to do it in my demo area, which my students can't see. Add an assignment here, and you can see I can see all of them. When I go down through here, the same thing. Oh, there's only one thing that shows up under availability. Now, because they're advanced, I can hit show more and get those other ones, but the normal teacher, when they get here, they only see one thing. When's the thing due? And that's it. Same thing with submission types. There's only 2 kind of submission types available, whereas if I went back over here to the one I was just showing you, there we go. Submission type has a bunch of other options that I can go to on it. Feedback types, it doesn't have as many feedback types, and there's not even an advanced down here available to it. And then you can see submission settings. There's nothing showing there unless I hit show more, because those things are considered advanced items that most teachers aren't going to even need to look at. Most teachers will come up here and just hit expand all, and then we'll only see the things that matter to them when they do the assignment, whereas if I go back here and do expand all on this one, there's a lot more options available to them that makes it a little bit more confusing on there. The last thing before I go through and we stop to do any questions is talking about automating Moodle to do some of the things that it needs to do. And I should have talked about this probably during the config section of the server. But there's a file in the folder etc called cron tab where automatic things happen. So basically, most of this is already there. This line would get added, which runs the cron off of the cron password that you put in Moodle every 5 minutes, so that whenever anything is done that needs an email that gets sent out, those get sent out every 5 minutes. And then I also, in my additional folder, have my tool that automatically uploads my users every night and my users that are on the IEP list every night automatically. And that runs every night at 2:35 and 2:55. And I have an attendance add-on that I've got in that additional section 2 that runs at 5:35 and 5:45, which is how, when my students come in, and they log on, and I'm obviously not going to show it because I'm a staff member, but not only do they see their grades, they see how many days they've been tardy, absent, and their overall attendance rate at the top of their Moodle as well, because that was one of the things that we wanted to identify at National Trail as an item to make sure students knew what their attendance rates were. So that is what cron tab is. The other thing is daily backups are kept in a folder that I made. You basically just copy one of these and edit it. That's in cron.daily, and it does this every day, basically every single day. And you'd have to have a folder on a Microsoft Share called some share name with the username and password that has access to it, which is why those are changed to that. It goes in and takes the database and the data folder and archives it over there every day, and incrementally keeps the last 6 databases and the last 4 data folders, because they're really big, so that if something catastrophic was to happen to our Moodle server, I could bring it up within an hour with yesterday's stuff as well. Those things I wanted to point out as well on things that to do with the config. Okay, so that's basically it. I'm going to do individual questions now for the rest of the time that we've got, and go through individual settings, both on my site, and I don't want to be video showing any of those things, so we're going to start it. Oh, I also had, let's see, there was the cron daily, just showed that, okay. And from here on out, we're just going to do individual questions, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and the webcast while we do individual questions at this time.